for the drink, of course. But we're also here for this man, who I've known for a long enough time, but not as long as some of you guys and girls in the audience. And there's a lot of stories and a lot of interesting situations that have happened over the years. And we're just going to have a bit of a chat now here on stage at the Hard Rock to talk about the life and times of Tom Russell and your book, of course, Tom. Now, Tom, if you bend over and reach behind you, you'll find a big, long, hard thing. And that wouldn't be the first time. There you go! Hey! You're rocking now. So, before we get into the chat, I think, or in fact, actually, do you know what? Let's save that as a surprise for after the chat, all right? Let's get down to business. So, before I get into kind of asking you a few questions, Thomas, do you want to say a few words to everyone who's made the time here tonight?
Thanks, Kieran, and thanks to Greg the Piper. There's a good story actually in the book, and I had forgotten I'd written it, but just working with Greg there reminded me there's a story about when we had Greg live on 96.3 Rock Radio. I was doing the lunchtime show at the time, and Greg came in to teach me how to play the bagpipes live on the radio. And it was an abortion, it really was. He started off with a chanter, and he got me to play Three Blind Mice on the chanter. And I said, live on the radio, oh, forget that, let's do it properly, the actual bagpipes. It's bloody hard. It really is hard, blowing in the bag and playing the thing at the same time. So well done, Greg, and thanks for piping me in. Before we go any further, we forgot about the raffle. We're having a raffle tonight, and all the money's going to a charity that Rock Radio we always supported, and that's Nordoff Robbins Music Therapy. So, it's only £1 a strip. You can buy the tickets up at the back where the books are, or there'll be a couple of the girls that'll be coming around selling them. Some of the prizes: bottle of Bushmills Irish malt whiskey, bottle of vodka. We've got a 96.3 Rock Radio t-shirt.
Where did that come from? The bottom of your wardrobe? Right, okay.
Only been worn a few times. The lovely Jean has washed it and ironed it. We've got an extra small, Real Excess t-shirt.
What?
We've got a meal for two at the Hard Rock Cafe here in Buchanan Street. Also in the raffle, we've got a pair of tickets to see Eden's Curse. They're playing at the Cat House on the 21st of November, and you'll also get an autographed copy of the new album Cardinal. We've got a pair of tickets for a band called Lords of Black. Now this is the band that features the brand new singer in Rainbow. So they're playing the Cat House in December. We got a pair of tickets for that. And what else have we got? A Christmas meal for two at our old friends SJ Snooks in Barhead, including a bottle of wine and chocolates and all sorts of things. So, and the final prize, the star prize, a cuddle from Father Ted.
Just to be clear, it's a little bit more than a cuddle. Especially for you, big guy.
So, if you want a raffle ticket, up the back, or there'll be a couple of girls coming around, they'll be selling them as well.
Fantastic, Tom. So, I have a few questions for you, and I also maybe have a few stories to add into the mix. But the first truth is that I don't want to ruin the book for anybody, okay? Because it's a very big book. But the truth is, I haven't read it yet either. Alright? But that's a good thing. The reason I haven't read it is because Tom wouldn't give me a copy beforehand. He said, no, you gotta get one. So I'm gonna get a book and have a good read, and I'm kind of dreading what might be in those pages, if I'm honest. But let's stick to the good times. And before we talk about where it started, what happened on the journey, and where you are now, Tom, as far as I'm aware, and from talking to people, And even from just having a brief chat with Paul and Martin, who worked with you, by all accounts, writing a book about your life is a pain in the arse.
Not so much a pain in the arse, Kieran, but it's a lot harder work than I was expecting. It's amazing. People that do it for a living, or any authors that are out there, it's a lot harder work than I was expecting. Easy enough to remember some of the stories, but to try and make it a read was quite difficult. So hopefully I've made it an interesting read for the people that are here. Incidentally, something I forgot. Could have a big round of applause for that first band that were on, Audio Race. I thought they were fabulous.
In writing the book, Tom, and the fact you said it was difficult, now tell the truth, how close did it come to not happening? Or was it always on track? Was it always going to happen?
Well, it was always on track. Paul Murdoch, who's basically persuaded me to do it. I met Paul when I was doing one of my film extra jobs, doing a film called Tommy Zona, and I met Paul and he managed to persuade me to write the book, and we worked together for a few months. Then Paul had to pull out through personal circumstances just towards the end, and Martin Keelty came on board and he helped me get it over the finishing line. So it was always going to happen, but there was one or two hiccups, but we got there.
And how much of the content of the stories survived the legal eagles, shall we say? Because, you know, even in the 10 years, 12 years I've known you, there's been some libelous stories, to say the least. So, you know, how much fun did the lawyers have with your book, out of interest?
Horrendous. I wasn't expecting it. We wrote the book, and then it goes to this person called an editor. And this editor goes through it all and comes back, and it's like, do you remember when you were at school and you did your homework and it came back to the teacher, it was all red marks and this is shite, get that out. And it was like that. And all these things, stories of my life that she said, the editor said, no, you can't put that in, you can't put that in. Why? Well, some of it was libelous, some of it was silly things that you would never think of. I'm talking about the band Blackfoot. They were one of the first bands I ever interviewed. And I put in the book, a couple of them were from Red Indian extraction. And she says, oh, you can't say that. And I says, why? Oh, well, it's Native American. Oh, all right. Things that you would never have thought of. But some of the more dirty stories, she wanted me to take them all out. She said, what did she say? She said, these dirty stories, they're just smut, for smut's sake. Now, there's a good friend of mine down the front here, Raymond Mearns. He's one of Scotland's best comedians. And Raymond knows exactly what we're talking about, smut for smut's sake, don't you, my Raymond? But after quite a bit of deliberation and argument, I said, fuck it goes in. So they're all in. Sue me if you want.
Like your style. On that note, I'll maybe dredge up some of those slightly interesting and colourful stories, but one of the great stories I remember you telling me, and you know, and I'll talk about the first time I met you, or actually should I say the first time I saw you, which was across a corridor wearing your brown leather jacket, and I was like, who's that mad-looking lad with the beard? And someone told me Tom Russell, and I said, I had no idea. And what an education it's been in discovering your history, and also going on a journey with you over the last decade as well. But one of the great stories I remember you telling me, and I'm sure it's in the book, was the first band you went to see when you were a youngster. I think you may have been, 12 at the time? You were still at school, certainly. And you're the only man and person I've met that had the fortune to see them right at the start.
I was about 12, as you said, and my dad came home one night from work. He was a sales rep. He used to sell chocolate. And he came home one night and he said to my mum, I've got a pair of complimentary tickets for a concert tonight in Glasgow. do you fancy going? We'll get a babysitter for Tom, or maybe he'll be okay watching the telly. And my mum had been working all day and she says, I can't be bothered. Why don't you take Tom? So my dad said, oh, okay son, we'll take you along. And we went into Glasgow, we went into Renfield Street, and we went into the Odeon Cinema in Renfield Street. And we watched this band. As I say, I was only about 12 or 13 or something like that. And we watched this band, and my abiding memory of the gig is you couldn't hear a bloody note. All these women screaming, and they just had a tiny little PA, so you couldn't hear much of it. But my other abiding memory was all these women running to the front of the stage and taking their knickers off and throwing them on the stage. And I thought, hey, this is a business for me. I fancy getting into rock and roll. It was actually the Beatles, and I was very fortunate to. I'd never heard a single note they played, but I saw the Beatles. That was my first band, and that was at the Odeon in Glasgow back in the early '60s.
Quite a story, and from the Beatles to some of the greatest bands in rock and roll history. AC/DC have interviewed, Deep Purple, and what I found quite a shock to the system. About maybe 8 or 9 years ago, you and I were working at an award show in London, and Ozzy Osbourne showed up. And honestly, I've never seen anything like it before or since, with an A-list rock star not be a rock star and become a friend and embrace you in a way. Can you share that story with people?
Again, the story is in the book. We're talking about Ozzy Osbourne, and I was fortunate back in the 80s to interview Ozzy a few times when he was only known to the rock fraternity before the Osbournes. And then this particular gig that we're talking about in London, the Osbournes had become very, very popular. So of course Ozzy and Sharon were arriving in the red carpet, and Ozzy came up and he's shuffling up the red carpet, and he's got about 6 flunkies round about him, making sure he's thank you, making sure that he gets to the top of the red carpet, and he just happened to look up and I hadn't seen him for a couple of years. And all these people from Radio 1 and the BBC and ITV and all the rest of it are shouting, Ozzy, 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 trying to get a couple of words with him. And he was just ignoring them all, and then he looks up, and I think he saw my beard, and he says, Tom Russell, you old bastard, I thought you were dead. And he shuffled over, grabbed me, gave me a great big kiss on the cheek, and then carried on. And all these wankers from BBC and STV, they're going, who's this?
Honestly, it was just, I wish we had it captured on a video, because it was surreal to see the love he had for you. But in those days when you were doing your show, the access you had was fantastic. But even just before you got into radio, you've had a very interesting past. And I remember you telling me that you used to jump out of planes as well.
Early 20s, I was living in Newcastle at the time, and a few of my friends and I were out one Wednesday night on the Newcastle Brown. I'm sure one or two of the guys have sampled a glass of Newcastle Brown Ale. You know what it does to you? I was pissed. And the guys one of the guys said, his name was Trevor, and he says, I'm going to join the Paras. And all the rest of it, yeah, what? I says, I'm going down to the drill hall tonight to join the Paras, join the parachute regiment. So all the rest of it, there was about five or six of us, and we says, hey, that's a great idea. So I went down to the drill hall, and we signed up and joined the Paras. And that was me in the parachute regiment for the next 2 years. 7 parachute jumps, and some of the best friends I ever made. Had a great time.
Mental. really, which is a good description for yourself and how you got into the rock and roll business and what happened over the time. Now, I'm sure in the book is the story of how I would say you blagged your way onto Radio Clyde and you created the Friday Night Rock Show and really took that to a place over time. And you know, every guy and girl who's of a certain age in here who I've met, and I've met over the years, the thing they always tell me when they mention Tom Russell is, oh, I used to listen to him on a Friday night, or he played my band first, and all these amazing things, and I'm sure that still happens. But the Friday Night Rock Show was very much a Scottish institution in a way, as a radio show, and it's testament to your ability as a presenter and the strength of that radio station, but it's still so widely remembered. Of all your achievements on that show and the biggest bands you've interviewed, is there one thing that maybe sticks out and you think that was the peak of the pinnacle, or the biggest band at that time I interviewed, or my greatest achievement with that show? Come on, bring it down.
It's so difficult to pick out just one, because the Friday Rock Show on Radio Clyde ran for well over 20 years, and there was so many bands and so many great times that we had. So it's very, very difficult to pick one. Perhaps the one that pops into my mind, and I talk about it in the book, is one band that they were an American band, and their first album was just out, and they were over in Glasgow supporting Kiss at the Glasgow Apollo, and I think it was October, November, thereabouts. I think it was about October, November, and they came in to do an interview at Radio Clyde in the afternoon. We pre-recorded the interview, and we sat and had a coffee in a blether. They were nice American guys that couldn't understand why here in the UK, the home, as far as American bands were concerned, the home of rock, the home of Black Sabbath, Deep Purple, the Beatles, the Stones, the Who, and this country didn't play rock music during the day. You know, the Radio Clydes and the Capital Radios, even the Radio 1s, the only time you could hear rock music at that time, before the internet, was a wee show, 2 hours, very late on a Friday night. And these big bands couldn't understand that. So this American band, supporting Kiss, in for an interview, then a coffee, and it started to snow. And there was about, maybe within 15 minutes, just about half an inch of snow. So the tour manager said to the band, right guys, come on, into the bus, we'll need to get back into sound check. And they couldn't get the bloody bus out of the Radio Clyde car park. The wheels were spinning. So my very good friend John McAlvin, who's in here tonight, John was the production controller at Radio Clyde. John, myself, and 3 members of the band had to push this bus out of the Radio Clyde car park. The 3 members of the band were Dave Bryan, a man who was in Glasgow last night, Richie Sambora, and the singer of the band, Bon Jovi. And one of my biggest regrets was not getting a photograph of us pushing that bus through the snow in the Radio Clyde car park.
Brilliant story, and another one that just sprang to my mind there, I don't know if it's in the book, but years ago at 96.3 Rock Radio, Ian Gillan of Deep Purple, who'd been in numerous times for interview, but the first time he came in and he reacquainted himself with Tom and a big hug and a chat, and he goes straight into a story, because it popped into his head, about being on the lash with you after a radio interview in Glasgow, and you went to a place called the Tuxedo Princess or something like that. It was a boat, and the pair of you, forgive this, but the pair of you had a piss off the back of the boat, and you got chased.
It wasn't just the pair of us, there was 3 of us that night. My very good friend, one of my best ever buddies, is Gordon Hotchkiss. Now Gordon is in tonight, Gordon presents folk music on Celtic Music Radio, and he's a lovely, lovely guy. And there's probably, he was kidding me on tonight, there's more stories about Gordon in the book than there is about me. So he's going to sue for royalties, he was telling me. So there was Gordon, and there was Ian Gillan, and there was me. We were on this boat in the Clyde that was a disco. And it was the only place you could, at that time, you could get a late night bevy. So we went in, had a few beers, and we couldn't find a toilet. So the three of us ended up in the bridge, you know, the captain's quarters. And the three of us are having a piss off the side of the ship into the Clyde. And the big bouncer spotted us. So he threw the three of us off the boat and told us we were barred.
You're right. Moving forward in time, it's still there. Show everybody this, Tom, all right? Tom Russell has a tattoo on his arm of a radio station he worked for called 96.3 Rock Radio. And I know the Friday Night Rock Show on Radio Clyde meant a lot, and it means a lot to a lot of people here over those 20 years. But briefly, can you sum up from the start to finish those kind of 4 or 5 crazy years of 96.3 Rock Radio? What that meant to you, and also what it must have meant in order for you to put that on your shoulder, Tom?
When I got the tattoo done, it was, people said to me, what are you tattooing a radio station on your arm for? It'll be there for life. My reaction was, it's a big part of my life. And it was a big part of my life. And I'm still proud of my tattoo. And that few years of that radio station, it was wonderful, because not only were we playing, nobody's arguing that everybody in Glasgow and west of Scotland loves rock music. Most people, let's be honest, most people love pop music. But no problem, they've got their radio stations. But suddenly we had a radio station that was playing rock music for the minority, but a sizable minority of people who liked rock music. And they could switch on that radio station morning, afternoon or night and hear the music that they loved. And that was just wonderful. And we built, I think, a community. We used to have events, we would put on secret sessions, we would have competitions, and we made so many friends, and so many of them are actually here tonight celebrating with us. And I think if you're patient for just a few more minutes, we're maybe going to have something more to say about that.
Very true, Tom. So from rock radio and more journeys, and let's be honest, the journey isn't over yet. So before we get into a bit of news, how do you feel right now at this stage in your life? Are you ready for retirement? Have you got the pipe and slippers out? Is Jean looking after you with a steak dinner every night? What's happening? What's next for Tom Russell?
She feeds me far too well. I mean, she's too bloody good a cook. She really does. She's put on a few pounds for me. Since Rock Sport, I was working in Rock Sport for a while, and sadly it bit the dust. And the last few months I've been concentrating on writing the book. But retirement? Nah. Who wants to retire? Never.
So, are you ready for more then, Tom?
I'm ready. I'll tell you what I'm ready for is more music, because the next band are superb.
Well, I think we should share with everybody some news we had today. Now, boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, for about, well, it's been a year and it's been about 6 months, and you have played an absolute blinder. But we have lobbied Ofcom, the government, to convince them that we should get rock radio back in Scotland.
Bring back rock radio! Bring back rock radio! Bring back
we did a lot of work, and Donald MacLeod, Paul McManus, myself, Brian Fulton, Tom, Billy, Jim, Angela, Ian, Lisa, Nicola, Andrew, lots and lots of people behind this, and a huge amount of support from the Scottish music industry, from people all over the place, but most importantly, and I know most of you, each and every one of you, lending a hand, lending a voice, sending an email, writing a letter, some sending threats, by the way, slightly awkward. But everyone had the right idea and everyone got behind it. And let me tell you what happened today. I got an email this morning from Ofcom, the government, the heavies. And they said to me, we're going to announce the winner of the radio license for the West of Scotland at 2:30 p.m. today. And I thought, bastards. Because I was under instructions that they would let the winner know beforehand. So I thought, oh, that's that then. So I went on with my day and I sent an email to the guys and I said, look lads, not happening. Game's a bogey. And that was that. And then at 2:05, I got a call. It was a very short call. And they said, hello? And I said, hello. And they said, are you the lads who proposed to bring back rock radio to the West of Scotland? And I said, aye, that's us. Yeah. We're the bunch of degenerates who proposed that. And they said, okay, great. Well, in the wisdom of Ofcom, we have decided that you should bring back rock radio to the West of Scotland. So, on that news, ladies and gentlemen, rock radio is going to make a return to the West of Scotland. If you're not already there, make sure you get on the official Rock Radio Glasgow Facebook page. We'll have information and updates in the coming days about what the fuck we're actually going to do.
One very important thing. You might remember, ladies and gentlemen, that one of the problems with the old 96.3 rock radio was the size of the transmitter. We were limited, as in we were competing for advertising against the likes of Radio Clyde and the other radio stations because we had a smaller transmitter. It was the license, there was nothing we could do about it. The great news is that this new Rock Radio Glasgow will have the same size of transmitter as Radio Clyde, so you'll be able to hear it all over.
Yeah, we'll have more details on what the coverage and all that, what that means, but essentially, and I don't think there could be a better night more deserving of getting that news for your night, Tom. And I don't think there's a man more deserving to get back on the air for a rock radio station for Scotland either. So, ladies and gentlemen, from Tom and I, for all of you, we are going to bring back rock radio. But down to business tonight. This is Tom Russell. He's put his heart and soul and a few truths and lies into that book. Get a copy of it, get him to sign it, and most importantly, get him to buy you a fucking drink at the bar. Because you fucking owe me one, by the way. Have a great night. Thank you, Tom. And look forward